All right, so what happened to Ghanaians in the business of transporting tomatoes back home for us to enjoy? Let's hear first from the Minister for the Interior, speaking to Marusanda Amadou, giving details of this very tragic incident.
Just to unfortunate, I must take this opportunity once again to extend my condolences to the families that have lost their lives, even though as a government we are officially yet to inform them because we are still working hard to get those who are safe out of the conflict area or out of the difficult area. Yes, it's true. Unfortunately, on Saturday, our brethren who were in Burkina Faso, to be precise, Tito, that's a community close to the Mali border between Burkina Faso and Mali, had to be caught in the crossfire between violent extremists and I think the Burkinabe armed forces. Unfortunately, we had 18 of our compatriots who were there. You know, these tomato women who go to buy tomato and come and sell in Ghana. When they are going, they usually go with their truck and go with their men who help them to virtually do everything. That's in terms of loading and everything. So there were 18 of them. 10 of them were male and 8 were women. Unfortunately, when these violent extremists got there, they asked all the women to get off the truck, and then they started shooting indiscriminately. In the process, the driver and others even died instantly. But then they just bent the car, the truck, with the bodies. So the bodies got bent beyond recognition. But fortunately, 3 of the men managed to get off the truck, even though some of them have received very severe bends. So they are at the hospital. And then out of the 8 women, one was also injured heavily, who was also in the hospital. So after this morning, they were preparing to bury the dead because obviously the bodies were in a very bad state and they had to bury. So they buried it this morning at 10. Since I have been in online with my colleague, the Minister for Security of Burkina Faso, and they've been doing everything humanly possible to assist us to get our compatriots out of the difficult area. In fact, our embassy, our mission in Ouagadougou wanted to be there to even witness the barrier, but unfortunately it was difficult because the area was still not very safe. But what we did was to request that they assist us, even though these women who are there knew all the men who are dead. We still wanted samples for DNA, because if you come and say Muntaka is dead, yes, someone may say, I saw that, but what the family home, in case it becomes necessary, then the DNA samples could help. Graciously, before they were buried, the update I have is that yes, they've been able to get the sample for possible DNA. Now, our compatriots that are doing well, that the 7 women, are currently, as we speak, in the process of being moved to Ouagadougou. So they are in transit coming to Ouagadougou. The 4 who are injured, who are in the hospital, the woman in particular was stable enough to be able to move to Ouagadougou, where she could receive further treatment under our care. Unfortunately, one of the 3 men who are heavily injured is her husband. So she opted that she will stay close to her husband. But the 3 other men, the hospital advised that their condition was not stable enough for them to be able to embark on that long trip. So we are hoping that they will continue to do well. And then we are hoping that when these 7 women finally get to Ouagadougou, our mission will receive them and be able to have fine details of those who are dead, so that we can now begin to reach out to their families and officially maybe inform them. So we want to assure the public that government is doing everything humanly possible to ensure that our citizens who have been caught in this crossfire are receiving, are given the best of care. Except to say that the situation in that particular town was very precarious, that our mission could not even go there. I want to also take this opportunity to plead with the public. heaven's sake, let's stop sharing the videos that we might have received from that area, especially where the bodies were completely burnt and the injured were at the hospital. Because it doesn't speak well of us. Families, people have their families have traveled to that area. They are not sure, are they part of those who are dead or are they part of all this? Now you are sharing all these things on social media. I don't think we would have sensitive enough. I mean, we should be sensitive enough and know and put ourselves in the shoes of those families. How will you feel if you are not even sure, you've not been officially been told, and you are shown dead bodies or people that have been burnt, and you are not very sure whether your loved ones are part? I don't think that's a mark of insensitivity. So I want to plead with all of us, please, let's stop sharing. I have seen the pictures, I've seen the videos, they are very gruesome, and it's not something that is tolerable to view, and therefore not to be sharing it too.
Do we know whether this was targeted because they are Ghanaians or they just happened to be passing and got caught in the crossfire?
I mean, it's purely that they just got caught, because I'm told that many of these women, in fact, the women themselves were telling us that when those guys came, they said, oh, no, we are not targeting you Ghanaians. And they would say, no, we are not targeting. We know you, the women, we are not those our targets. And allow the women to. But for whatever reason, another one came and then started to start firing at a distance that got this, and they started burning the car. But the women would tell you that they were sure that they were not really targeting. They were not targeting them at all. This is just something that they just got themselves caught in the crossfire.
What did the Burkinabe authorities or the armed forces of Burkina Faso do regarding this particular? Did they move there to attempt to rescue them? Do we know what the state government was?
They did, because after those extremists took over that town, the Burkinabe armed forces came in forcefully with reinforcement. And I'm told after some few hours they were able to recapture the city, and these guys flee. And then they started searching virtually corridor to corridor and door to door, just to be sure that those elements were still not around. So the forces of the Burkinabe forces were able to reclaim that area. Yes, they came forcefully and they were able to rescue our women and assisted them. As we speak, the 7 of them are being transported to Ouagadougou.
So that's Umar Sanda Amadu speaking with the sector minister responsible for Interior and National Security, Mohamed Muntaka Mubarak, detailing the unfortunate shooting and killing of our compatriots who were on their way on cross-border trading, basically going to buy tomatoes from northern Burkina Faso, got caught up in that crossfire. Security analyst Colonel Festus Abuaji, retired, says Ghanaian traders, the unfortunate victims who were caught up in that terrorist attack in northern Burkina Faso, were simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. And he's been speaking about whether Ghana should restrict citizens from traveling to volatile areas like Burkina Faso. He stated that the attack was not specifically targeted at Ghanaians, a part of which the sector minister confirmed.
Let me address the earlier dimension that you raised, the question of tribal advisory. But a short while ago, I posted a few words on my Facebook page, and our ambassador in Burkina Faso responded. That is our own colleague, Major Retired His Excellency Akibake. And he was suggesting that issuing a tribal advisory might, arouse the sensitivities of the Burkina Faso authorities. But I'm trying to suggest that this is a normal practice. So even if we don't issue a direct travel advisory, I believe, and this was what I said on my Facebook post, that within Burkina Faso itself, the authorities send out messages informing their own citizens as to which areas of the country are safe or not safe. So we can latch onto those kinds of messages in order to educate our own people. So what I've read is that of the tomatoes that we are eating in Ghana here are coming from the Sahelian zone between Burkina Faso and Niger. So we have a trade economic interest to go into these countries, but it must not be at the cost of lives as this has happened to be. We don't go deep into Burkina Faso because that area is too close to the Malian border, controlled by Al-Qaeda and its affiliate, the Jinim, and then the group that terrorizes Maiduguri, that is the ISGS or ISPS or whatever it is, you know. Now, on the question of the intervention, this is not sufficient reason, this incident is not sufficient reason for Ghana to deploy troops into Burkina Faso, even at the request of the government of Burkina Faso. The moment we do that, they will have joined the conflict, and the terrorists can then assume that we are their enemies and bring the conflict onto our territories. So the option that we have, one of the options that we have, is what former President Akufo-Addo started in 2017, the Accra Initiative, to bring together countries on the Guinea Coast and the Sahelian region to exchange intelligence. Incidentally, since 2025, it does appear that the Mahama administration too has moved away from the Accra Initiative and has rather embarked on a bilateral relationship with Burkina Faso, you know, exemplified in the appointment of our colleague, once again, His Excellency Kenneth Bevlo Latte, as Ghana's special envoy to Burkina Faso. So these are the mechanisms that our governments have resorted to use. However, there could be a multilateral arrangement. And that one example would be what ECOWAS did in 2012 in Mali, when it deployed for a very short time an ECOWAS mission in Mali. And then the African Union took over. And then in a few months, the UN came and then established what became the longest serving MINUSMA, which the government in 2020 or which of 2022 said they must pack and go home. That's one model. Right now, there is no ECOWAS. So it's not a question of the rest of ECOWAS coastal states mobilizing to go and assist them. But there's no rapprochement. The dialogue is still going on, but there is no collaboration, I mean, in the strictest sense of the word, as used to be within ECOWAS. The other model that we have is what pertains in the Lake Chad Basin region. So there, Nigeria and Chad and Cameroon and Niger are being terrorized by Boko Haram and other jihadists. But what they decided to do is to embark on a mechanism where they share intelligence very, very intimately, and then each country deploys within its own borders and only crosses into another country, what we call hot pursuit, based on prior notice to the other country on unjustifiable grounds. So, to cut it short, the option for Ghana to deploy troops into Burkina Faso will not be the best way to go. We should rather strengthen our presence on our northern borders, as we have been doing for some time, and then continue to deepen exchange of intelligence and information with Burkina Faso, and of course, by extension, with all the other countries within the region. If you ask me about the Accra Initiative, I have my own views. The Accra Initiative was too ambitious. It was taken outside of the ECOWAS framework. So it became an Accra mechanism, not part of the ECOWAS framework. And by the way, Nigeria was not even a member of the Accra Initiative. And in this sub-region, Nigeria is the lead nation. If you do or establish any mechanism where Nigeria is not a part, you are not likely to succeed. So I'm arguing that even if we should resuscitate the Accra initiative. It must now be an arrangement that sits in Abuja under ECOWAS arrangements that brings on board Nigeria and all the rest of us.
So, Colonel Festus Abuaji retired there, giving us his perspective on what has happened and how we should be approaching that on the security angle. But, Sky, on the top of my mind, I don't know if it's simplistic to ask, just an innocuous question, whether or not it's not intriguing that as a country that is generally very peaceful, surrounded by nations that have their own difficulties here and there, we do not have any issues with respect to our security. We are peaceful generally. We are seen as an oasis of peace. Is it not strange that our compatriots still have to, journey all the way to nations known as war-torn countries to go, buy tomatoes, vegetables, food in bulk? So we are secure, but we are going to insecure nations to go buy food and come sell to ourselves and feed ourselves. Like, is it okay? It's not sitting well in my mind. I don't know.
Well, before I respond to your question, I'm not so sure about war-torn.
Okay.
I think there are insurgents there.
Okay, insurgencies, yes. With terrorists here and there.
Yeah, that's right. War, of course, I mean, depending on what lenses you are using, you might come to the conclusion that there's a warlike situation, but these are insurgents.
I mean, relatively, in terms of security,
I mean,
there are issues.
There are issues there. That having been said, I want to use the opportunity to first of all express my condolences again to the families affected by this tragedy. It is a very troubling way to actually join the departed, and anytime I hear things like this, it troubles me, and my mind goes back to Kenya when we lost respected Professor Kofi Awuno. Because again, people with radical minds decided to do their own thing, and it's become a major blot on the conscience of Africa. We hope that they will find the strength. God will give them the strength to be able to weather the storm. It is not easy, especially given what is happening online, the irresponsibility and all of that. We hope that there will be some sanity and people would come back to their conscience and would act responsibly online. That having been said, to respond to your question, I think the fact is that no country is ever truly self-sufficient in everything. Right? There are always areas that you don't have comparative advantage. And so you may well have to depend on other sources. And that is what gives rise to matters of geopolitics and all of that, because these are matters of resources, where you are located, and related matters. Now, but on the matter of tomatoes, I think there are serious issues there. And it exposes a certain lack of rigor in government policy to deal with low-hanging fruits. Because we have vast acres of arable lands across this country, many of which are farmable. We have irrigation systems in many parts. If you go to Umaru Sanda Amadu's constituency, you find large tracts of land, sometimes supplied with water by irrigation systems. Some of these areas have been farmed. Rice and related crops here and there. But then again, large tracts have not been farmed at all. Now, that tells you that there is a certain huge failure. Now, I was looking at a press statement that was issued based on which we did a story. You find that story online. Ghana loses some 5.7 billion Ghana cedis annually to tomato import dependency. And the story says the Chamber of Agribusiness Ghana has revealed that the country loses an estimated 5.7 billion Ghana cedis annually due to heavy reliance on tomato imports, insufficient local production systems, and weak value chain value addition infrastructure. Now, if you go further into the story, the statement was issued on Monday, February 16, and the chamber described the situation as an economic drain equivalent to 1.2% of the country's gross domestic product. It goes on to say that the disclosure formed part of the unveiling of the National Tomato Production Strategy 2026 to 2030. Now, I want to draw your attention to some other figures in here. According to the chamber, Ghana spends between 650 million Ghana cedis and 760 million Ghana cedis annually on importing fresh tomatoes and tomato paste.
Please take the figures again, guys.
So 650 million Ghana cedis.
650 million cedis.
Yeah, exactly. And 760 million Ghana cedis annually on importing fresh tomatoes and tomato paste. And the country imports between 75,000 and 100,000 metric tons of fresh tomatoes and 78,000 to 100,000 metric tons of tomato paste each year, making it the world's second largest importer of tomato paste after Germany. Now, one would wonder, this is a country with great climatic conditions, and with the necessary investment, the necessary training, the necessary policy directives from government and those who matter. I think we should be able to produce enough tomatoes to feed ourselves,
even to export.
Exactly, and also process them into paste and related, intermediate goods, and then export them. But what we have talked about youth in agriculture. We have talked about planting for food and jobs, and all of these things we are talking about. But we have not been able to live up to the Operation Feed of Yourself mantra that previous leaders actually led. It was a champion or so who led that particular campaign, and that is completely unacceptable. I understand that, yes, we may not be able to get everything right, but in terms of what we eat,
maybe they say they said the variety from Burkina Faso perhaps it tastes better than ours. I don't know.
We are told by the women who import them that their shelf life is longer.
The ones we import from
Burkina Faso. And then also they are much more resilient when you plant them. What it means, tomatoes are generally
perishable.
Perishable, and they perish very quickly.
Extremely.
So that if we don't have systems to process them, and to store them properly, there will almost always be issues. If you go on the road towards Adan, you find a lot of these local producers of tomatoes. Now, if you get these varieties, you realize that you store them for a number of days and they go bad.
So they say that it has a lot of water or moisture in it or something.
Now, while that is a valid position to articulate, I believe that our guys at the Crops Research Institute, right?
Yes.
They will certainly have some ideas. And in fact, I want to believe that they have options that will be resilient enough and generate the kinds of responses that we want in tomatoes, so that it is possible for government policy, probably directed, to deal with this particular deficit. Again, if it is the case that we do not have that variety in Ghana, just as we import seedlings or seeds from Zambia, as the president told us recently during his recent trip.
We even bring cattle breeds and sheep and goats to rear them here.
Exactly. It is possible to get the seedlings
or resilient
from these sources and plant them here. Now the question is anybody thinking about this? Well, in this story we are told that there's a strategy that has been launched, and we hope that it will not just be one of those books produced and put on the shelves, and that there will be concrete steps taken to ensure that we produce these things here. Of course,
Sky, maybe we don't have the capacity, truthfully, to do this.
Where capacity?
Maybe the soil texture or the minerals in the soil is not good enough. Water is not great. Maybe it rains too much here, because in Burkina is more arid than here. So perhaps that's the reason why we've not done so well. We are the second largest importer of tomatoes in the whole world after Germany. Not even Nigeria.
Paste. Tomato paste. Now, what do you call it? My good friend Caleb. You see, the climatic conditions you find in the northern parts of the country are fairly close to what happens if you go
to Burkina
towards
Faso.
Burkina Faso.
So that means that if we had Pualugu multi-purpose dam running, that irrigation project underway, we should have had enough tomatoes.
Exactly.
Is that the case?
I mean, look at the vast lands you see up north.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Imagine if we say that we dedicate just the upper west or the northern region itself or the northeast, which of these regions, to producing just tomatoes, the right variety. Yeah. I have no doubt that we should be able to produce enough to feed ourselves. I think it's been incompetence, it's been laziness, and it's been the lack of initiative on the part of government. That's why we are where we are. Because tomatoes, I mean, within 3 months, 4 months, you should be able to wrap up, production and send them to the market. And in fact, in this day and age where people are relying on, is it aquaponics? Is that a word?
Hydroponics.
Yes. Hydroponics. What do you call it? Greenhouses and all of these modern ways of producing, vegetables. Yeah. It should be possible to do these things. We have no excuse whatsoever to continue to rely on external sources.
When you go to the farms of the farmers, some of them actually grow cherry tomato that they export. I've been to the Maflex farms, and he is the president of the vegetable exporters, and they've been saying that they have capacity. There's a story here, Deadly Routes, empty farms. But let me bring in Godfred quickly. Hear your thoughts. I mean, is it too much to ask for? Is this irony allowable that for a relatively peaceful nation as ours, with all the arable lands, with freshwater bodies as we have, we look on for our compatriots to travel the treacherous routes all the way to, insurgent-inflicted nations to go import tomatoes, and then we have this tragedy that we have on our hands.
Well, I think
now.
we need to separate the issues.
Right.
You see.
Right.
People will always trade. All right. The people who, this is their livelihood. Yes. Okay. Yeah. So they will tell you they understand the terrain, they understand the risk, and what they go through. That doesn't take away the fact that we have been hit by a situation that is actually the norm in our neighboring countries for some time now. Yeah. Burkina Faso, Mali, particularly in the the Sahel enclave, that is now slowly becoming part of the norm in coastal West Africa, which is where we are. Yeah. Okay, so now you realize that Benin is struggling with some of these incidents. Togo has been impacted. And then, but not here, but our people entering those very, very hostile terrains at the moment. And again, I think it's despicable, the acts that took place there. Yeah. And we don't want to hear these kind of stories about our brothers and sisters who, go with the intention of trading, but fall victims to incidents that are, like I was saying, on the other side of the border, pretty much the norm. So we ask ourselves, how then do we prevent these things from happening? It would be pretty difficult to prevent these things from happening so long as our brothers and sisters who trade, and by virtue of the fact that their livelihood is trading, have to cross the border to those parts to work, because this is work for them. Right. Somebody will say, well, if there are problems there, I cannot delve into the psyche of the eternal trader. As to that person will tell you, I know how to get there and I know how to come back most of the time. You understand? Because for all you know, it's a route that they have used 10 times and nothing happens. They understand where they have to pass, where they have to stop. But the growing volatility of the area is what makes it dangerous, and perhaps might need to our security agencies, the defense ministry, the interior ministry, the intelligence service, perhaps having a conversation with the persons whose livelihoods depend on going across these very dangerous areas. That look, now is not the best time, because if you do look at the data, now is not the best time to be moving across
these regions.
I am not going to delve into that matter of this is an opportunity to grow our own tomatoes.
Okay.
I don't think it's not an argument that I'm going to go for.
Right.
In the sense that there are things we import, there are things they import. Okay. Sky spoke about comparative advantage. Whether we like it or not, the Burkinabes, whatever we think of their economic situation or their situation, are way better at growing tomatoes than we are. It's the same way we are also way better at growing cocoa than half the world is.
Even that one.
I'm just saying, no matter what they do, we are better at growing it.
Right.
Because we've invested in it. The same way we've invested in the science of drought resilient, of pest resilient cocoa trees, fast growing. It's the same way the Burkinabes have invested in growing tomato varieties.
Okay.
If we knew the secret, you think that if Ghana knew the secret of those tomato varieties, we would not be growing them here.
Maybe we've not paid attention to it.
Oh,
but
come on.
Godfrey,
It's a very profitable endeavor.
Right.
You said you have somebody
else. Yes, Anthony Morrison is the CEO of the Chamber of Agribusiness Ghana. So we want to rope him in and take his thoughts on this one quickly. Anthony, we've lost a number of our compatriots who traveled to Burkina Faso to go import tomatoes because apparently we are heavy consumers of both fresh and tomato paste. First of all, as the CEO of the Chamber of Agribusiness, how does this news come to you? I'm sure it's not the first, but how does this one sit with you at your chamber?
Yes, Fred, thank you very much, and a very good morning to your cherished listeners.
Anthony, this is Caleb.
Oh, Caleb. All right. Good morning, Caleb. Yes, very unfortunate and very sad hearing this news. The chamber sends its condolence to the family and to the entire industry. We've lost some really very good Ghanaians and who are trying to make a living by providing us our daily tomato as we use it for several of our dishes. You know, the tomato is one of the most common used vegetables that we use in the country aside the onion. That notwithstanding, Caleb, we as a country, I think that we can do better where we are, what we are experiencing currently, because the volume of economic losses we are going through is very sad. I think we are doing somewhere about 720 million cities worth of fresh tomato imports, and the same volume for the paste and other canned products like the plum tomatoes and also the other ones. But I think that looking at it technically, now what we buy from Burkina Faso is mostly referred to as the beef tomatoes. You have a higher shelf life because it has lower water content, thick flesh or the muscles, and it's also good for processing. And if you compare that to our local variety, which has a lot of 40% or more water content, very thin flesh, and the meat in there is not well formed, so the shelf life is quite very low. There is a lot we can do in this space, especially just supporting it with the youth unemployment, and also with the drive right now by the 24-hour economy and His Excellency the President to industrialize the agriculture sector. We are very firm and believing of the fact that this is the right time for us to invest into some of the post-harvest losses. And let me also add that we have very high level of post-harvest losses in the horticulture sector, talking about the vegetables and also the fruits. So we need to work very meticulously. We need to be committed to this and to achieve. Some data shows that we are only adding about 7% of value addition, or we are only processing just 7% of our tomatoes that we process, that we produce. Some data also showing about 30%. That notwithstanding, there is still higher demand for processed tomatoes, i.e., either the plump or the paste tomatoes or the puree. So it's time as a country we need to look at it. Now, the chamber has done some economic analysis of the situation, which is staggering. The losses are about 1.2% of our GDP, which we spend on the tomato imports, both fresh and processed. And you look at the tax losses are around 180 to 220 million cedis. This can be used to establish a specialized economic enclave and also to produce tomatoes on large scale all year round, supported by irrigation and other government support systems for us to be able to produce for our needs. Then also in terms of security, see, it's mind-blowing that aside all the arable lands that we have across the country, we still continue to travel to trade. Trade is important within the sub-region, but not when you have what it takes to produce what you are buying from other countries. And I think we need to sit down as a country. Over the past 3 years or so, there is an ongoing program called the Food System Resilience Program, which is funded by the World Bank. And over $300 million have been put in there. Just recently, another $22 million facility has been signed. And one wonders how such amount of money keeps coming, and we're still importing huge quantity of both fresh and processed tomatoes. So the narrative has to change, and for us to be able to achieve our tomatoes food security, we're talking about putting around, in terms of jobs and unemployment, we need to look at 35,000 young farmers and supporting them with all the equipment that is required for them to be able to achieve. But most importantly, Caleb, we need to put in place the structures, the system. What is happening to the rice sector should not happen to the tomato sector. Should we implement this? There must be a commitment to it that addresses the market discrepancies and the disruptions in the market. The current trade system that we also operate, where no one actually seeks permit or license to import fresh tomatoes, as against no one actually building a data on the current acreage of tomato, the tomato land or fields under production when they are about to be harvested. It's also making it difficult for people to invest into the tomato or the vegetable sector. For instance, if the chamber for over the past 10 years have proposed that as a country we have come of age and there is a need for us to build the agriculture information database, where we know how many fields that are under production for every commodity. So when somebody comes to you to apply for a permit to import a certain quantity of a product, you use your database, which is giving you timely data to tell the person, if you are importing 50,000, the database will be able to tell you in the next 2 weeks or 1 month, this is the quantity that are going to be harvested. So your 50,000 import permit cannot be given, maybe 10,000 for the time being, and it must come within a specific time. Because the problem we are having is that by the time you harvest, then the imported produce are in. And that is where the market disruption and all the post-harvest losses start happening. And our food losses also are going high. So how we transport our tomatoes in buckets, we have to move from that sector and put it in crates in order to reduce the pressure on some of the produce that we transport.
Right. Anthony, you've talked about the fact that the variety we market women import from Burkina Faso is, for want of a better word, superior to ours. You describe it as beef tomatoes, while ours have about 40% water content. Theirs doesn't, and the flesh is fluffier, for want of a better word, once again. And so my question is, has it got to do we have capacity to produce their kind of variety? Because you also say that whilst our harvest is ready, which is less desirable by the market, the beef tomato that the market desires better also comes in by way of import. So do we have the capacity to grow the more resilient ones, for example? If we do, what will it take to produce them at market scale?
Okay, so it starts from breeding. We need to do proper research. So it starts from the soil. We need to, CSR Soil Research Institute have done the national soil mapping, showing where each produce does well. Now, we do know already as a country where our large-scale tomatoes comes from. The Akumadan, the Petwe in the Volta region, and the northern region and all that. Now, where we need to start from is the research institutions. We need to meticulously invest into research. Seed breeding doesn't take 1 year activity. It requires some activities to be undertaken. You need to breed the seed and give it to the multiplier. You do the foundation seed multiplier before you give to the farmer to farm. So it takes a long process, especially if you are breeding for drought resistance, or you are breeding for high yielding seed, or you are breeding for disease tolerance. You need to make sure that you are developing a kind of seed that actually meets the market demand. And that is globally, that is what a lot of scientists are doing. If you go to West Africa Center for Crop Improvement, where I served as a sectorial advisory board member, or you go to SARI, okay, they all breed a lot of seeds, but it's sad that none of these seeds have found their way into our seed album. And if you look at the national seed album, not even 2 seeds, tomato varieties, have been registered. That means that we import 98% of all our seeds for the tomato sector. And that also applies to quite most of the vegetables, including onion, pepper. I think apart from Lego 18, which we normally use, and which is a Ghanaian one, but even that, how accessible is it to the farmers? Then, notwithstanding, Caleb, there are 2 key other outstanding issues. Our cold chain management system for perishable produce. As a country, do we have a centralized cold chain system, maybe backed by either a solar system, so we are able to keep our produce in a manner that addresses our needs during times that we do not have major supply. Then secondly, seed is the engine of growth for production and agriculture. Just like you need your engine for a car, okay? So, or you need a battery for your car. As a country, it is time we set up the National Seed Bank, so that all the seed breeders in the country, like Benjamin Kemeche, MMBC in Adakulu, Emos in the Kofredia, WAC in the northern region, all these people have to breed seed and have to be kept. If you go to CSR, they also have a seed system in place where they are keeping certain seeds, but not on commercial level. So, assuming that the countries we import our seeds from India, South Africa, and South Korea, and all these places for tomatoes, are no longer sending us tomato seeds, what will happen to our demand?
Right, Anthony, there's one last point that I wanted to, I want you to throw some light on, because your colleague, Dr. Felix Kamasa, he's, said that the country has capacity to, as it were, produce enough tomato to feed itself, and he feels that if we revive and expand our irrigation facilities across the country, that's a major part of the conversation that should be seeing us produce enough tomatoes to feed the nation before we can be beyond the cold chain matters, transports, post-harvest losses. It looks like at the production side, in addition to the seed conversations and all, we have not done enough or proper irrigation to feed the production as an input part, we've not done well with the irrigation point. We've had a Lugu multipurpose dam, and that conversation has been on the table for a long time. It's not been completed. What would you have to say about the irrigation concern?
Well, I agree with my brother, Farmer Felix. Absolutely, Ghana has the potential, and he is one of the largest tomato farmers in the country. There are other tomato farmers as well. We have what it takes to produce to meet the demand of the Ghanaian people. But as you said, the right investment must be made. As a country, I think our total irrigable land right now that has been put into irrigation are about 230,000 hectares. Meanwhile, we have over 1 million hectares of agricultural lands that are not under irrigation. Some of these things, I think, have been stated in the budget for this year. His Excellency, in his address, said clearly that they were going to support irrigation for us to deploy irrigation in critical zones. What we should be looking at is that irrigation and production does not happen in the opium. I'm also the chairman of the Ghana Agriculture Sector Skills Board of TVET Commission. We do the labor market intelligence, the skills gap analysis report, and the level of skills that our people have. And if you look at our skills level of our farmers, if you take the agriculture census, which we did some 8 years ago, you realize that the census data is clearly telling us that most of our farmers are unable to use new technologies. It says over 80% of our farmers are using rudimentary technologies and are unable to read and write, and they are illiterate. It is time we support our youth, and in that census, it also stated that we have overage population in the agriculture sector. So this is the time we need to focus on the youth.
Right.
Support them with critical equipment, machineries, because the youth are very fascinated about technology.
Thank you.
Introduction of AI, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, and precision farming for us to address our needs and produce. Because, for instance, if you look at the countries where we are importing from, I think we are doing about 2.3 metric tons per hectare, and they are doing about 7 in the places like US. You go to Brazil, Cornell, California, they are doing 13 tons per hectare. Okay, so it's about the skills that you are putting in,
right?
And we need to
From
give
Anthony,
our farmers modern agriculture skills for them to be able to achieve.
Thank you. We'll leave it here. It's always good talking to you. We'll catch up some other time soon. Anthony Morrison is the CEO of the Chamber of Agribusiness Ghana. He's been sharing some perspective with us. So go for it. It's a whole cocktail of issues that we need to be paying attention to. But I'm coming back to you on the point where you make the point that, listen, there's a reason why we trade. And there are things that some would definitely do better than us. Yeah. So let's trade while we can.
No, my point is, at the moment,
there has to be a clear understanding of what is happening there. We've been reporting on it. This is the first time it has hit us here.
Yes.
You understand?
Yes.
Fortunately, it didn't happen here. Yeah. But that doesn't change the nature of the tragedy. All I'm saying is the people whose livelihoods depend on this will keep going there.
Exactly.
What they need to be made aware of by our country's security agencies is the danger that currently exists in that corridor, because there is a growing danger. Jen, I heard
Anthony Morrison.
No. I heard the Interior Minister Muntaka talk about the activities of JNIM, for instance, in that corridor. Everybody who's been following that arena knows JNIM have embarked on a strategy of targeting roads, convoys, trade routes. Basically, it's economic terrorism. What that allows them to do is to dictate terms. They are taxing.
Economic terrorism.
Oh yes, they are, because if you control a road,
you control the economy.
You understand? Yeah. So you can't go in and out.
Trade.
So for the past 2 or so years, it's been a very clear strategy of theirs. If you look at the data, it will tell you that there have been a lot of incidents on roads, in that corridor. So quite clearly, there is an ongoing danger for anybody who decides to use that particular corridor for whatever purpose.
we don't want to hear any more of these stories.
Yeah.
I trust our national security people know what they are doing, so they will have conversations with the traders.
Yeah.
The issue for us in Ghana then becomes how, if these traders decide that for the period that this situation goes on, they will not
going to
Burkina Faso
Yeah.
to bring in tomatoes. How do we close the gap
Yeah.
that exists?
Yeah.
Because as Farmer Morrison has spoken from the agric side
Yeah.
of this,
Yeah.
there is a liking of the Burkina Faso type by the market, which is why it is so popular.
It says
You
beef
understand?
tomatoes.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
the traders invest in it for a reason.
Yeah.
They might find other ways of bringing it into town one way or the other, but they like it. The consumers also seem
There's a market for it.
to like that one. You know, so there might need to be changes across board for everybody involved in this for us to survive this. But we don't want to hear this again. For me, those are my thoughts.
You know that there are situations where there is an instability in a certain area, and nations will issue advisories to their citizens that, hey, this is not the time to visit this particular country, or if you're here, move out, and all of that. So judging from the volatility or the volatile situation there, it is then the state can then go ahead to say that for all our traders who go to do tomatoes here, in the interest of your lives and everything, we do not advise that you trade here for some time.
I think that question was asked of Festus Abuaji, and I agree with the answer that he gave, in the sense that an official posting of such an advisory has implications.
Okay.
And the current nature of our relationship with Burkina Faso, particularly with our president, who is trying to bring Burkina Faso back into the fold of ECOWAS. We have a special envoy who deals with Burkina Faso. We are perhaps the only country who deals directly with the three Sahel boys through Bevlolate.
The Sahel boys.
Yes. So Ghana is definitely making attempts. So an advisory like that will be problematic. I think what can be done again is the behind the doors conversations. Ghana and Burkina Faso have a lot of conversations around security. There are a lot of operations that go on behind the scenes that we do not see or hear about. Military collaborations. I think perhaps we need to step those up. And again, I think the key conversation is with the court of traders, who I'm sure our security agencies know of. I'm sure they are well represented. They have an organization or a leadership. Perhaps have a conversation with them and say, look, our intelligence at this moment tells us that it is not safe to use this route. Perhaps it is safer to use this route. Have conversations around how to make it safer for them, and let them understand the dangers that exist in that corridor at the moment. I think perhaps that might be the best way to deal with this at this moment, considering what is happening. But also gives us an awareness of what is going on there. You know, we don't want it to cross our borders
at all.
No,
at all. And very important. But I mean, well noted on the security side and the trade side of things. But Godfred, to think that we have such huge arable lands and we've left so much of them not irrigated, and to think that we have, you know, CSIR soil research who have all the expertise with respect to the quality of soil that can actually promote any variety of tomato, so that we can actually grow this beef tomato we are told of, which has less water, you know, the flesh is better, and our market seems to love it. I think this is perhaps an opportunity for us to also be thinking about how we can invest in our sector, so that we can, assuming this goes on for a long time.
I understand where you are coming from on this. I am no expert in this space, you know, so there's very little I can add. But just from where I sit, again, I say Ghana has been growing tomatoes for a very long time.
True.
We've done a lot of things with tomatoes.
True.
There are times where we're very good at it. There are times we've been very bad at it. Now it's one of those times where we are not very good at it. We've read several stories of tomato farmers, those in Akomadan, Beto, who have complained that, look, they have tomatoes, nobody is buying. sometimes there's a glut. It is there also because we don't have the processing.
Yeah.
And I'm happy Sky went through the tomato puree numbers for you, because if you look at just how much tomato puree Ghana consumes,
150 million metric tons or something.
And
like
it will be interesting.
Second largest importer of tomato puree.
Exactly. And the question, it would have been interesting if I could have shown you how Burkina Faso, which produces almost 400,000 tons of tomatoes, doesn't rank very high on the tomato puree import team. That means what is happening there?
Substitution.
You understand what is happening in that space? We grow the tomatoes, we import a lot of paste. It means tomato puree is key to what we do here.
It's
almost everything
major in our meals. The jollof, the lice soup,
everything. Perhaps they don't have it as much. Those are perhaps some of the changes that need to take place in that conversation. I certainly think we can do better. I think the investment in the tomato science could be better. The investments in
the business of it,
the processing could be much better. It's now a good time to have it. I think it's a conversation that we've always had. It's not like it's a conversation that goes away. It's a conversation that we've always had about the processing of some of these products. Whether the timing fits or not, again, not my place to say.
Look, there are some messages that I'll be bringing to you shortly. David Boahene sends us a message. He says, Caleb, I was privileged to be part of a tomato farming seminar recently, and I learned tomato production is largely dependent on climate. Ghana alone is unable to grow tomatoes all year round. Greenhouse tomato production is also very expensive, so many are advised to do the traditional open house method, which is much cheaper and can assure at least some profit after harvest. This is why we rely on Burkina Faso for tomatoes, because their climate is much conducive for a year-round planting season. So when our climate is unfavorable, Burkina Faso is able to fill in the demand. Thank you, David Boahino, who sent that. But the argument that Sky was making earlier is that the climate in Burkina, it's almost similar to our northern part. So we should be able to utilize the vast arable lands we have there to sort of, catch up with and fill the gap, as it were.
Yeah, but that is where the variety comes in, I guess, because they are able to do this all year round.
All year round, that's correct.
Will we be able to, I don't know, again, the experts can tell us, will we be able to grow our kind of tomatoes all year round there?
That's the question.
That's another question.
That's the question. So
I guess in the end, it comes down to the science behind it.
True.
The varieties that they have. And again, like I was saying, maybe we bring the tomatoes here. How come we have not been able to look at it and say, I don't know whether there are intellectual property issues around it. Again, it's not my area, so I'm just asking.
But think about it, Godfrey. We go all the way to Burkina Faso to bring the tomatoes. I don't know how they transport it, whether it's any different, whether it comes in a cold chain or it comes in the trucks in the same boxes.
It comes in trucks.
It comes in the trucks in the boxes now.
The market close to us here is a major
tomato market.
The market behind the railways. Let up.
Okay. Graphic?
Yes, the graphic road area.
Sure.
It's a major tomato depot for the region.
Right.
So most of the time when the trucks come, that is where they are offloaded. So you can see them in the cartons being offloaded.
So that speaks to the variety issue, because then it means that really and truly theirs is more resilient, because something that can be on the road from Burkina Faso all the way to Ghana, it gets here so strong, and then we move ours from Akumada or Ada to Accra, and by the time it gets here now, Apache and those kinds of things. Tells you the variety issue, right? Good morning, City CBS. Over the past nearly 10 years working with vegetable producers in northern Ghana, I have observed a few reasons why tomatoes from Burkina Faso remain very competitive in our market. First, many of our farmers still use varieties that are not strongly aligned with market demand, especially in terms of firmness and shelf life. Second, agronomic practices are sometimes weak Issues such as wrong fertilizer application, poor timing of farm operations, and inconsistent pest management affect both yield and quality. Third, production is highly fragmented. Farmers often operate individually or in small groups, which makes it difficult to aggregate large volumes to meet market demand consistently. Finally, production costs in Ghana are relatively higher, which makes our tomatoes more expensive compared to those from Burkina Faso. So the imported tomato that comes from Burkina Faso too is cheaper than the ones we have here.
Yeah, so that's the irony, isn't it?
The thing we've got to import, it has been on the road for a week or so, got into our market, it's still cheaper than the one that is coming from, that has been in traffic for just about an hour or two.
Yeah. So again, it will come back to what goes into the production here locally.
Sure.
And what goes into the production elsewhere. The same thing you have with other farm crops,
onions,
that we import into the country.
Yeah.
It's a big issue. It's a really, really, really big issue. And perhaps at some point we would wake up, smell the coffee,
Charlie,
and do something about our own situation.
Yeah.
Because it's at least we should be able to feed ourselves to a large extent. Because I mean,
the gap is a lot, man.
If you do Gary photo,
Yes.
you find tomatoes in there.
It has to be the jollof.
Jollof, you find tomatoes.
Light soup.
Light soup, tomatoes in there.
What else?
If you do potom, some people add, they do the stew before they put.
Potom.
Oh yeah, they do the stew before they. Some people.
So there is a tomato paste to do potom.
Yeah, before they put the nagoti or the related matters inside. So
that gives it the color.
Akpele, you are, chimachi, tadi, do all of those things. So it's to the extent that we are the second highest importer of tomato paste after Germany. I mean, that should speak volumes as to the extent of consumption here. Yeah. So any competent manager of our economy should be thinking around, how do we put ourselves in a position to be able to produce a sufficient quantity as to be able to feed ourselves and to export. Even if we don't have the know-how, it is possible to learn the same. I mean, cocoa didn't start growing here.
Yeah.
We are told, if the story is to be believed, that a certain gentleman known as Tete Kwashi went to Fernando Po, and somehow some suggest he swallowed it, and then when he came back, I don't know how long he stayed on the sea, and eventually came to Godfrey's community and expelled it.
Yeah.
Some people said he hid it somewhere in his things and all of that. But the story is that he brought it from somewhere.
True.
And today we are, if you look at some numbers, the second largest
producer of cocoa.
Yes. Right? Yes. So we were not born with it.
Yes.
We came to learn it. Yeah. Malaysia, right?
Palm kernel and palm fruit.
They came to our country in the days of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah to get the palm kernel. At the time,
engine oils and things,
exactly,
industrial oils and all kinds of things from the palm now.
Exactly. At the time, they didn't have any idea how to properly, produce palm kernel in large numbers. Yeah. But today, they are a world leader.
It really just means that if we put our minds to it, we should be there.
Exactly. So, I look, I mean, we cannot continue to make excuses. Yes, as I said much earlier, we can't be good at producing everything. It is impossible. There are things you would have to rely on your neighbors for.
Yeah.
There are things that you have to go outside of your immediate environment to go and get import into the country.
True.
But there are those that we must be able to say that as for this one,
dear.
No.
Especially giving us it features very strongly in all our meals.
Exactly. It doesn't make sense. I think something has to happen. And the Honorable Eric Opoku is a great friend of mine, brilliant, mind, who understands his space. I hope that beyond the interviews that we've heard him, grant, we'll see some real action on the ground, so that the reset and the transformation that will follow would manifest itself in a way that is truly transformational. Because it is one thing having everything in your head and articulating the same. It is an entirely different matter altogether. Implementing policies that impact these areas in transformational ways.
Sky, the number of messages that are coming through, more messages coming through that I want to add to the conversation. So Professor William Boateng, for example, Vice Chancellor of Methodist University, Ghana, he sent another message. He says, Akumadan used to produce tomato all year round growing up. Go for it. This will intrigue you. All year round, the all year round conversation has been addressed here that Akumadan used to produce tomato all year round. It takes 3 months, and we had a bibira. Hey, Prof, wait there, fetch me. We had a bibiribra, Petra Fupe, and Adantemu. Okay, Adantemu. I think I know that. Extension officers were very efficient. Yes, thank you. Extension services were very efficient. What happened? He asked. We have irrigation dam that is going waste in Akumadan. Oh, wow. So I think these are all issues that should come to the attention of the sector minister in an attempt to sanitize the space and deal with the issues. Good morning. CSIR produces a lot of varieties which are hardy. We have the capacity. KNUST produces tomatoes all year round in greenhouses. This has never been hard. We wrote projects back in school on how to utilize the overproduction of tomatoes in Akumadan during Holt Prize. Yeah, I remember Holt Prize back in school. I'm sure that data is sitting on a shelf somewhere in the University of Ghana. In the university, you said. So good morning, Caleb. I think it is important that the Burkina Bay tomato be sent to the lab to determine its contents and see how it can be applied in Ghana. Godwin sent that from Adenta. A number of messages coming through here indicating that, look, we have the capacity. We should just sit up and get to work.
Oh, as for I have no doubts in my my whatever it is that we can do it if we put our minds to it, right?
Yeah.
Look, if you read around the story of how, for instance, China, we're talking about them recently, right?
Yeah.
Has been able to sort of overtake the US.
Yes.
Some people still dispute
and
it.
all.
Not even in cars.
Right.
I'm talking about artificial intelligence.
Right.
Right. You will be amazed that a country that 60 years ago really didn't have that level of capacity and rigor to be able to match the might of the US is now a global leader.
Yeah.
They send their people out there to learn.
Yeah.
They invited the outside world to come and invest in the economy.
Yeah.
They promised that they were going to make labor available, and they did.
Yeah. In
the process, they learned, right? And that is how today they are able to tell the US that, hey, if you like, walk off. And they are making a difference. We have been processing, and we have been producing cocoa for how long? We are still talking about
became a republic or before.
We are still talking about how to export the raw seeds.
Yeah.
Gold.
Yeah.
We still, majority of the times, export the gold in its raw form, right? I think that at some point we have to realize that, Charlie, with the chop last.
Hasn't that realization come about? Especially listening to the president these days. I've heard him talk on a number of platforms where he said that we are not going to export our cocoa raw any longer. We are going to be adding value to our gold. It's a lot of speeches.
Oh, I mean, what? President Nana Danko Akufo-Addo came and told us about
Ghana Beyond Aid.
Ghana Beyond Aid. Eventually,
Ghana
became aid itself. That is also there. John Kufuor did quite a number of things, right? Especially when he started with the industrialization bit. The Yensu Start factory, we saw the garment factories that were established, and quite a number of other things. But the truth is that some of these things just They died off. The
They
Start
died with
Factory, you
time.
don't even know what has happened to it. The garment initiative, we now call the Friday wear and all of that. You don't know what has happened to it. So there's something about starting new policies.
Continuity.
And continuity doesn't help us. Somehow, it just die off. So things like this, you prick our conscience.
I really hope it will. I really hope it will, because the manner in which our compatriots died, it's really sad. But we've had this culture cyclical in nature of wasting tragedies. Things come, we cry, we mourn, and the next thing we move.
Yeah. Elsewhere, someone would take a bill to Parliament, name it after the 7 who died.
Yeah.
And then you see that there's real change happening because a law will be passed that would identify the specific gaps and insist that in keeping with our commitment to ensure that that doesn't happen again, so that their sacrifice will not be in vain.
Yeah.
These are the things that we would do. And then they will do it. And then you see some transformation. Unfortunately, as you said, we are like the proverbial vulture. We complain and cry when the rains are in, the storms are over.
Promise that we're going to build a house.
And then we get back to the old ways of doing things. So the president, he is doing a lot of research, a reset talk. We had him in Geneva, right?
Yes.
Now he's in Addis Ababa.
Addis Ababa.
We've seen what he's been talking about locally. But that, beyond the talk, I mean, let's move beyond the talk and do some real investment and take some real action to transform our spaces.
Very important. Let's do this for our compatriots who passed.